everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Leonie. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I am nothing in my soul if not obsessed with Gilmore Girls. I've been watching this small town autumnal soap series for the first time ever. If you want to see my thought process throughout the series, I've been sharing it all on Instagram stories and giving you all my updates, so if you want to know about that, follow me on Instagram at thebookleo. But because I've been spending every single free minute of my life watching these two Gilmore women go through their lives, I am really craving books that have that similar small town vibe to it. You know, for the past few months, I've been rubbing my two brain cells together, reading these big, long-paged books that require a lot of analysis. I even started reading Jane Eyre, and I need a little bit of a break. And in that break, I want books that I can just read fast, that are about people that live in small towns with their silly little problems, maybe a silly little romance. This is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, which is Rachel Hawkins, it's a pseudonym. This is a small town romance about two witches, so it also has a little bit of that witchy vibe, which isn't necessarily Gilmore Girls, but to be honest, I am kind of feeling the witchy vibes right now. And then for the rest of the week, I'll just see whatever book comes on my path. So I would say sit back and relax, and I hope you enjoy this reading vlog. Clean the doos. I started reading this yesterday and I am already halfway into this book. Partially because it's only 300 pages and the letters are extremely large, so I am flying through this, but also because, man, this book is it's just so silly and fun. Oh man, you know, I've been obsessed with Gilmore Girls and I never really understood what people talked about when they said, you know, small town vibes. Started watching Gilmore Girls, understood the appeal, and then I was like, I need books with that. It takes place in Graves Glen, which is a small town in Georgia, and there are witches that live there, including our main character, and she put a spell, a hex, on her ex because he hurt her. And about 9 years in the future, he comes back to the town and just mayhem all around because he is bringing the bad luck. That there are things falling, just things falling off statues. There are like little skulls that come to life to attack everyone, and it's so silly. It's so silly, this book, and I'm living for it. At the same time, this book's really not that good. So yes, I am loving these small town witchy shop owner, history teacher, witchy vibe that is going on, but also this book really reminds me of Wizards of Waverly Place, and it has Disney Channel vibes. Now when I say a book has Disney Channel vibes, that is both an insult and a compliment. When I say Wizards of Waverly Place vibes, I mean it has that silly little witches in the real world vibes, where they just kind of rummage around and go on their little fun. and it's making me feel nostalgic for Wizards of Waverly Place. But at the same time, this book has Disney Channel humor, which is in no way a compliment. That is an insult. It constantly teeters on the edge of cringe, so I think a lot of people will like it, and a lot of other people, it will not be for them. One of the examples is just, this is one of those books where all the swearing, there's no swearing. They just replace it with these like witchy swears. And it kind of makes me feel like I'm reading a children's book. The only example that I can think of right now is that one of the things they often say is Rhiannon's tits. But you know, it adds to the silliness, and sometimes you just want a silly little book with very cute chapter headings with a candle and a cat on it. Hey, I have a candle, and I also showed you my cat, so I'm doing it right. Are the characters very well developed? No. Like, is there any good world building going on? I don't even want that. Is the chemistry between the characters built up correctly? No. I mean, in this book, it's basically just our witchy main character, Vivienne, and her witch ex, Riss, just lusting after each other from page 1. Like, over the top lusting after each other, which usually I am a fan of. You know, it does the right thing where we get both perspectives, because if you get both perspectives, then you get twice the pining, which I love. And I love reading about characters lusting after each other. I think that's funny. But in this, it's... I didn't think I would ever say it, but it's a bit too much. Like, they are... like from page 1, you know, where I'm like, okay, a little bit of build-up would be nice. All that said, I am enjoying my time reading this book. I am speeding through it. There's something about small town witchy vibes that just grabs me by my heart, you know, and I want more of it. And I'm very much on my Gilmore Girls small town shit right now. Yeah, maybe this is a sign of some deeper longing for small communities with local and strong interconnections between the people that live there. Maybe. Maybe I've just been watching too much Gilmore Girls. Hello, happy Monday. Oh, I finished this. Finished it in 2 days. Again, is this a very well written, well thought out story? No, absolutely not. There are plenty of romance books that do that way better. But this was just silly and fun, and I liked it. I want more romance stories with that little hint of fantasy that is just kind of a little silly, because most of the fantasy romances that I've heard of are very, you know, I guess like very serious. It's very like, ooh, it's fantasies, you know, like serious fantasy, but sometimes I just want a little bit of, you know, Wizards of Waverly Place. Now the question is, what am I going to read next? So let's take a look at my bookshelves. So I am 100% still in the mood for a small town cute little story because I'm still obsessed with Gilmore Girls. The problem is, if I look at my bookshelves, I don't really feel like I have anything that fits that. Like, these are the books I haven't read yet. I don't have, this is all just like high fantasy and classics. Or like contemporary fantasy. I guess I do have The House at the Cerulean Sea, which I heard is that perfect cozy chill fantasy. Yeah, but it takes place on an island and I want the small town vibes. I do know this book does have a sequel. It's called The Kiss Curse, and we follow, you know, it's the standard companion novel where we follow this main character's sister. I just don't have a copy of it, but I guess maybe I could just do an audiobook. I could just listen to an audiobook. Now, this book wasn't particularly good enough that I'm like, yeah, I want to read all the books in the series, but the reason The Kiss Curse piqued my interest is because it follows, I think, Gwyn? It follows Gwyn, and she has a little witchy shop, and her love interest is someone who moves into the town and also opens a competitor witchy shop. So it's kind of rivals to lovers and small business owner in a small town, and I love those tropes. So maybe I'll listen to The Kiss Curse. But I will say there's been one book that I've had on my audiobook TBR for a while that I feel like no one's ever talked about, no one's really heard of. I never heard of this, but I feel like it perfectly fits these vibes. It's called Witchy Whiskers. Witchy Whiskers by Danielle Garrett, and it follows a woman who inherits a familiar, so a cat, a talking cat, who is apparently super sassy, and she has to take care of this cat while she lives in a very small witchy town, and then her ex-husband moves in, and then there's also a murder that she has to help solve. Sounds really bad, but does tick off everything that I want right now. And just to kind of show you the vibe of this author, she has another witchy series with the following titles: Murders a Witch, Twice the Witch, Witch Slept, and Which Way Home. I mean, if that isn't the work of a mastermind, I think these kind of stories is what one would call cozy crime stories, and I'm not really a crime person, and Witchy Whiskers seems to be more crime small town story than romance small town story, and I do like a little bit of romance. But you know what? I think I'm just gonna give this a try. You know, just for you guys, to let you guys know if this is good or not. And if I'm not feeling it and I want something more romantic, I will listen to The Kiss Curse. That's the plan for now.
Shiny books. So scary.
Die
Je moet een keer bij mij
rode.
naar de botanische tuin komen. Daar heb je een vlindertuin.
Oeh, love that.
De meeste insecten zijn natuurlijk heel erg leuk.
Oh shit. Such cuties.
En een baby maanvis.
Maar? Oh.
Maar die is nog eigenlijk best wel groot dus.
Ja. This book is something else. Okay, I'm like an hour into the audiobook and I don't think I will continue this. Amazing. Actually amazing. In the weirdest way. An amazing story. I think this is the silliest little romance book I've ever read. I didn't think I would ever find a romance book a little too silly. We start out in this cute small town. Our main character is a 34-year-old woman and she, you know, she's a hashtag girl boss. She has her own little witchy candle shop that has actual magic. Like the candles are magical. Don't ask questions about that. There's a talking cat that will give you a sassy remark at any moment. So our main character is just, you know, she's just working in her little small town candle shop and then at some point a handsome man walks in named Clint. This happens in like the first 10 minutes. Immediately, there's some flirting, you know? It's very clearly self-insert main character and then, you know, she gets the attention from a random handsome man that she flirts with in her shop. I understood the appeal. I was reading this and I was like, you know what? I understand the appeal of these kind of books. But there, you know, there may be a little bit of a romantic moment there, but not for long because then someone else enters the shop. Who is it? Her ex-husband. Now we have a love triangle and we're not even 20 minutes into the audiobook. And if that all isn't enough, like I said, there's a murder. She finds out that there has been a murder in town and who is our prime suspect? It's Clint, the man she had a little bit of a flirtation with. It is rumored that he killed his brother. And if it wasn't really clear from the premise of this book, I can tell you that the dialogue and the things that are happening in the story really don't make a lot of sense. They're not very realistic. The next day, our main character comes home in like this dark alleyway in the middle of this middle of nowhere town and she meets Clint. She sees Clint again, who, just as a reminder, the only thing that she knows about him is that she met him once in her shop and he is a prime suspect of a murder. So you're standing in a dark alleyway with this potentially homicidal man. What is the first thing that you say to him? Well, obviously it's just asking him like, oh my god, did you really kill your brother? And then when he says, no, I didn't, the police doesn't believe me. You believe him, of course. You know, you gotta help him out. The police is after him and he obviously didn't do it because he says he didn't. And that seems to be the start of the rest of the story, is that she's gonna try to help him find the real murderer. And when I say it like this, it's not even that bad. I understand the appeal of these kind of stories. I was very pleasantly surprised. It does the cliche thing of having a main character who doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, but I was just very happy to see that the main character was 35 years old, which means that there's a market for women around that age that want to relate to women in that age that don't know what to do with their lives. And that brings me some peace of mind because it means that even at that age, many people don't know what they want to do with their lives. So I don't need to feel rushed about anything. I really understand the appeal of mindless, cute romance stories. I mean, that's what I look for all the time as well. But this was genuinely a little bit too mindless in the sense that I'm just bored. Like, I just really do not care about anything that's happening here because it's so formulaic and there's so little nuance or depth to anything that's happening, so I don't think I'm going to finish it. When I went for a walk later that evening, I considered starting the audiobook for The Kiss Curse. It probably really would scratch that itch of the autumnal small town vibes with romance and a splash of fantasy as I like it, but I realized that that itch was already slowly fading again. And late at night during my before bedtime reading, I found myself reaching for Jane Eyre again. I often cycle through moods when I'm reading. Some days, like the past few days, I'm really in the mood for a fun, silly read, and then after a while, like right now, I want to return to a longer story that I can really sink my teeth into. Now, of course, Jane Eyre is not at all a small town story, it's more like a large mansion kind of story. Like, how large does a mansion need to be before it technically becomes a small town? Anyway, I am going to be continuing reading this, but for this reading vlog I just wanted to end with a little recap of other small town books that I would recommend to you, and ones that I'm very excited about reading once the urge inevitably strikes again. First, let me give you two recommendations of other small town books that I've read. The first one I think is the most obvious one. It Happened One Summer, because, hear me out, okay? You know Gilmore Girls? Luke and Lorelai, who, by the way, I ship so much. I ship them so much. It took me a while to warm up to them, like a full season. I used to be so pro Max Medina, but alas, that is no longer. But now I'm fully on the Luke and Lorelai train. Anyway, I digress. Take Luke and Lorelai, you multiply their personalities by 10, and you get the hero and heroine from It Happened One Summer, right? You have like this very grumpy Chad alpha man. And then you have like the sunshiny character Piper, who is very much like a bimbo, and she does come from like the big city, unlike Lorelai. And she comes to this small town where our Chad character is like a fisherman, and it's a typical like girl from the city goes to a small town and they fall in love. It is pretty good. Well, a lot of people really love this book. It wasn't personally my taste, but that's just because of my personal gripe. I'm just not really a fan of stories with these hyper masculine, like Chad alpha male characters, and Tessa Bailey has a tendency to constantly emphasize that he was so masculine and she was so feminine, and that's just really not my thing. But I know that a lot of people don't mind those things, and if you don't mind those things, I think you would enjoy It Happened Last Summer. I personally thought this one is like, the smut in this is like good, like very good, like the perfect amount, like the perfect balance. So I would recommend this one if you want like a Fisher small town book. And then the other one that I like to recommend, because I recently realized that one of my favorite romances of all time is a small town story, and that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. If you like Gilmore Girls, but make it nerdier, because here we follow again someone from the big city who goes to a small town, but the point here is that in this small town they organize every year a Renaissance fair. So you know, like in Gilmore Girls, every few months they organize all these festivities and these festivals, and I always really like seeing that in Gilmore Girls. That vibe is this book, because our main character has to help the other townspeople to organize a Renaissance fair, and our love interest Simon is, you know, the town's resident English teacher. So if you like Max Medina, well, his personality is completely different. Like, just imagine an English teacher but with the personality of Luke, and then you get our love interest Simon. And on top of that, we also have our main character helping out with this like small little coffee shop slash bookstore, and it's just so fun and wholesome to read about them setting up this bookstore and in this small town, and it's just a perfect escapist fantasy. So if that sounds anything like anything that you would like, Well Met by Jen DeLuca. And then lastly, I just want to talk about one book that I'm still very excited about reading. The moment I get the urge again to just pick up like a fun, wholesome book, I will pick up the, what is it called? The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. It's not technically a small town story, but we follow a young witch who is invited to go to this house on a hill where she will teach 3 other young witches how to do magic. The whole thing about small towns is that it's more about this small community feeling, and this book is supposed to really have that. You know, she teaches these people, she is discovering more about herself, is like letting go of old emotions. There's a little bit of a romance with the house's librarian, because there's a library in the house and there's a little romance between them, and it just sounds so cute. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about this. So this one is 100% on my radar. There's just something about witchy vibes that goes so well with these like cozy small town vibes. I don't know what it is, but it's nice to have the little bit of sprinkle of magic into that. I'm glad that you spent this time to just hang out with me. Again, if you want to know more of my opinions of Gilmore Girls, you can follow me on Instagram, because I do post updates in my stories there. And while I'm here giving you reminders, you should subscribe as well if you don't want to miss any of my other videos. And with that, all I can do is wish you a very happy rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you again next week with another video. Goodbye!